this affable life, and I'm David Aliff, and talking today to Troy Hawkins. And Troy is a really interesting man. He has battled a disability all his life, but it doesn't really categorise who he is. He categorises himself through his life. So Troy, thank you very much for giving your time up to have a bit of a chat.
My pleasure.
Troy, what I wanted to focus on was people don't really understand, and it's a wonderful thing that our world has changed so much that we try now to understand a little bit about disability and about all kinds of areas of difference in life. As you know, years ago, people with disabilities basically were hidden away from society, which was just awful, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were. Yeah, like you said, society's come along a long way, which is great, which is now giving people like myself and other people with disabilities a better chance to live a better life.
Oh, yeah. Look, now you were born with a disability.
Yeah, correct.
Would you like to describe what it is to our viewers?
Yeah, sure. So I'm born with a disability or condition called Spina Bifida.
Yep. So
what that basically is, it's a spectrum condition first of all. So therefore it affects everybody differently, and each case is different to the next.
Mm-hmm.
But it's basically a lower back degenerative condition that gets worse over time. Now, depending on where that, where that lesion or where that thing is affected on the spine, will depend on the effects of the condition. So I was born with a hole in the lower back.
Yep.
Around the lumbar sacrum spine, so towards the lower back, towards the bottom part of the spine.
Yep.
Now, for me, with that, so the spine stuck out through the skin, so therefore protruded to push through everything like the nerve endings, the muscles, the blood vessels, all that sort of stuff. And naturally, it severed all my nerves.
Mm.
So therefore, with me, it affected essentially my hips down and below. Yeah. So I didn't learn to walk till I was about 4 years old. And I'm still at the age of 30, almost 31 now. I'm still trying to get my lower back and my glutes and my legs to where they should be.
Yeah, but now you're very serious about that because I've been to your house. I've taken a client, a friend to visit you, and you're a coach, aren't you? You're a life coach, and you help people through this stuff.
Yeah, correct. So I'm a qualified personal trainer.
Mm-hmm.
Body transformation specialist, nutrition specialist, and athletics and conditioning coaching specialist as well.
Wow.
And I've had those qualifications for almost 10 years now.
Yep.
And I actually was told that I was physically incapable of becoming a personal trainer back when I was about 18 years old.
Okay.
So again, about 13 years ago. And that sort of kickstarted me into my career and where I am now.
So you're obviously a very determined person. You didn't listen to that advice, did you?
No, definitely not. And the heartbreaking thing at the time was my dad was in the room when this person told me.
Okay.
Now, again, he obviously did what he could to support me and defend me and whatnot, which is great.
Yeah.
But ultimately, my mistake, and in hindsight, it's a mistake.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I listened to him, the guy who said I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it. So I didn't fight back. I didn't defend myself. Dad did his best, of course.
Yeah.
But unless I was going to do it, it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
18 years old with a disability. So I've got all these negative thoughts in my head, and I guess all these concerns and about my life and my condition in general. And then some knob who had only known me for about 30 seconds to 5 minutes max had told me I physically can't do this when he had no idea who I was.
God. Troy, just so at the time you're in a wheelchair or not?
No. So luckily I've been, and this is thanks to my parents, they've encouraged me to walk as early and as often as I could.
Okay.
So I'm a walker. Luckily,
okay, great.
And my goal is to stay out of the wheelchair. So with my condition, as I said, it's a degenerative condition.
Yep.
And usually by the age of 40 is what I've heard, is when it starts to really go downhill.
Okay.
So being almost 31, I've got just over 9 years
Yeah.
to make sure that I'm physically as strong as possible, so I don't end up in a wheelchair full time.
Okay. Well, maybe now's the time to ask you about your greatest achievement so far. I'm sure you've got many more ahead of you, but what was your greatest achievement so far?
Well, the greatest achievement was doing what they said I couldn't do. A lot of people with disabilities, they have a lot of doubts on themselves to begin with, simply because of their condition and what they've had to deal with and what they're still dealing with.
Yeah.
Let alone to have a coordinator or have an expert or, a boss or whatever you want to call it, tell you can't do something. So in direct answer to your question, my greatest achievement was becoming a personal trainer when they said I couldn't do it.
That's great.
Yeah, that was so that started a ripple effect, which allowed me to go on and keep pushing the boundaries and try and achieve essentially what I wanted to try and achieve and try to become a better person over the last 10 years.
Yeah, look, I'm very impressed with I'm obviously with you when you're talking to my client, my friend. We're not supposed to make friends of the people we work with, and that's a very strongly encouraged thing. But I always think that it's a bit weird the way this works, because if you're spending a lot of time with someone and really getting to know them, it almost seems an insult to say that you're only there as a carer or whatever. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah. So, and again, it's probably an old school way of thinking, the way I'd probably say it. But you always want to try and separate or be able to separate professionalism and your personal life.
Exactly.
But when in a case like mine and yours, when your professional life and you, crosses over with personal, it's very easy to do that. So especially obviously we're both dealing with people and essentially customer service.
Yeah.
And obviously clients and whatnot. So we naturally get to know people on a more personal level. So it's, for me, I'm in exactly the same spot. So it's a matter of trying to establish boundaries with your client, probably from day one, as soon as possible.
Yeah.
That way you both know where the line is, and you both know not to cross it.
Yeah, exactly. There are some issues, of course, where people don't have a chance in some cases to actually make friends. And so, that blurs the issues as well. Now, Troy, you've done weightlifting. I mean, I've seen all the heavy stuff you got there, and I look at it with great fear.
Yeah. So I've been involved in gyms and the fitness industry, or working out, since I was about 16.
Yep.
Again, due to my disability, I didn't walk till I was about 4 years old, as I mentioned, and my legs have been weak pretty much all my life. Yeah. So naturally, what I had to do was develop good upper body strength to compensate for what I couldn't use.
Yes.
My family's always been sport orientated. We're big footy fans, big cricket fans, and sport and being active in general.
Okay.
So again, all my life, I just wanted to do what they were doing.
Yep.
And having the disability, in a sense, holding me back in the back of my mind, I wanted to be better than them.
Okay.
Because I had something. I've got something to prove to any able-bodied person. I've still got that mindset. If there's an able-bodied person there, I've got to beat him. And then I'm the type of person that'll throw it in their face as well. So, so back to your question. I've been weight training since I was about 16 years old.
Yep.
Give or take. And being a personal trainer, I loved it. People love being around it, seeing myself do it, and getting some inspiration from it. Thinking, if this guy can do it, and so can I, type thing.
Yeah.
To the point where I think it was about 3.5 years ago now, I became the first ever seated physically challenged competitor for the ICM, which is a bodybuilding federation within Melbourne.
Yep.
And I competed on stage for the first time 3 years ago.
Wow. What did you lift?
So my best lift, again, it was bodybuilding. So I was more, getting on stage and posing and essentially showing off your body.
Okay.
And your definition, your muscle, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
In terms of my lifting, though, my bench press at best was about 125 kilos.
Yep.
Weighing at about 59 kilos, I believe I was weighing at the time. So I was lifting well over double my body weight.
Yep.
My body weight dip had an extra 60 kilos on top of my body weight. So I was essentially lifting double my body weight with my triceps.
Wow.
They were probably my two best lifts.
Okay. And how were you received?
Yeah, really well.
Good.
Again, when I did get on stage, I got on stage against somebody who was standing.
Yes.
He had a disability himself, which had a car crash and whatnot. So he had a disability himself, but again, he was standing. So he had the unfair advantage.
Yeah.
But again, it was the first time the ICN, or this Bodybuilding Federation, had ever done it in Melbourne and ever done it in Australia, I believe. So again, it was something different. No one had ever seen it before. And they loved it. And I think they've had about 4 since then, off the top of my head.
So you're a trailblazer.
Yeah, you could say that, yeah. So, hoping to get on stage again at some point. But, we'll see what happens then.
Yeah. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about is, the issue of depression and mental health. Now, I've just done an interview, which will go up before yours, with a guy who was an extremely positive fellow who I've known for a number of years, but who battled depression and suicide thoughts. And these are things that, we've got such high stats of men who do this, who either suicide or at least try or at least have the thoughts. And men are not very good about talking about their stuff. How have you managed your mental health, and and in your work, have you had to actually help others with theirs?
Yes. So again, I've been really, really lucky. Again, I'm a believer that we all suffer from mental health at one stage or another. Be it anxiety, depression, whatever it might be. But I've been really lucky with a really good family, where they set me up from a really, really young age to be able to connect with others and to be able to ask for help.
Yep.
And without even knowing it at that stage and that age, surround yourself with the right people.
Yeah.
When you surround yourself with the right people, then you've always got someone to lean on, and someone to rely on when you need the help. The best thing my family ever did for me was teach me how to be independent with a disability.
Okay.
But at the same time, learn to ask for help.
Yeah.
Because no matter how independent you are, no matter how disabled you are, you're always going to need help at some stage of life. So, so be as independent as possible, but still be humble enough to go, well, I need help, and things aren't right.
That's probably it's an interesting point, because everybody, whether they're abled or not abled, and I believe we all have a disability of some kind.
Yeah, correct.
But everybody needs to be able to ask for help, when they need it. But again, it's an area where men are not very good at doing that. So your family, they must have been terrific. I mean, I would imagine it would be a very huge temptation or concern for parents to over-parent or over-protect their children if there is a perceived need to do that.
Yeah, correct. I've had that a little bit, and I've been around people with disabilities since I was about 8 years old. So sure. I've been around a lot of people with disabilities and a lot of parents with kids with disabilities.
Yep.
And it's almost a 50-50. Some parents are really good and they'll go, no, go and do your own thing, go experience life, hurt yourself, go learn the hard way.
Yep.
And then you've got parents that will completely coddle their kid.
So
again, it's a 50-50 in that regards, but I'm a big believer in learning to essentially hurt yourself, if that makes sense. For example, I had my first fall out of a wheelchair when I was 8 years old.
Okay.
It was probably 3 weeks into first starting wheelchair sports.
Yep.
And what I was doing at the time. But because I actually fell early, I was able to learn from it quickly.
Okay. Yep.
Whereas, you know, I've had friends who had their first fall from a wheelchair in their early 20s, for example.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they couldn't deal with it.
Yeah.
And their parents couldn't deal with it too, because they spent the 20 odd years protecting them and wrapping them up in cotton wool, to the point where they didn't know what to do when something went wrong.
Yeah.
So again, I'm going to credit my parents here, that they threw me out there. My brother as well, my uncles, were all about tough love.
Yep.
And put me into a situation that was difficult, that I couldn't get out of, or found it hard to get out of. And therefore I had to learn how to get out of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it comes down to, you're right. It comes down to the parents, I guess the parents' influence and their parents' willingness to allow their child to experience life and essentially hurt themselves early.
Yeah. That's very good advice. You know, you mentioned that with your condition, that around 40, they talk about life deteriorating. You know, it's a tough question, but how are you looking towards that? I mean, you're obviously doing everything you can to make sure you're best able to cope and to defer any of that. But yeah, how do you actually think when you're looking down that journey?
Okay, so with that, coming back to my disability and the effects that it will potentially have on my body, where the lesion is around my lower back, the muscles and the connection there will just start to wither away.
Okay.
And then as that starts to wither away from the spine, once the spine gets affected, being your central nervous system, anything and everything can get affected.
Okay.
So therefore, my goal is to strengthen up the area around the lesion as much as possible. So therefore, putting as much muscle in and around my spine as possible. So that way it doesn't get affected as much when I hit that age of 40.
Okay.
That's why I'm so big on exercise. That's why I'm so big on weight training.
Yeah.
To make sure I've got as much strength in my body as possible. That way, when that 40 does hit in just over 10 years, I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
So that's the physical side of things as well. So I guess the exercise side of things. At the same time, what I'm doing is I'm seeing physios, I'm seeing osteos, and I'm seeing the other one is myotherapists, you know, regularly, probably once a week each.
Okay.
Making sure I'm getting adjustments, making sure I'm getting massages, making sure I'm doing that R&R side of things as well.
Yeah.
On top of doing the physical side and then doing the workouts.
Okay, great. I'm wondering, the other side that I'm thinking about is who are your heroes? We all need somebody to look up to.
Mm-hmm.
So who at this stage of your life remain your heroes?
At this stage of my life, my family. You know, my dad's a big one. My mum, my older brother, my uncles as well.
Yep.
They're the people that I look up to the most. And they're the people throughout my whole life for, 30 years. They've always had the biggest influence on me, and helped me get through what I've had to go through.
That's such a wonderful thing to hear. Troy, I'm sure there's lots more we can talk about, and there may be something that you'd like to mention, but I try to keep these relatively brief. For guys, who are either abled or with a disability, who are struggling with any aspect of their life. Maybe it's loneliness, maybe it's maybe it is a disability, maybe it's their sexuality. Who knows what it is? Have you got some advice for them?
Yeah, so it's funny. I've been thinking about this quite a lot recently. I again, being a big footy fan, hearing about Shane Tuck's suicide. Was it last couple of days ago or last week or whenever that was, that started to really hit me hard.
Yep.
Not a Richmond supporter or anything like that, but it just pointed out to me that that mental health affects everybody.
Yes.
Nobody's safe from it.
Yeah.
And nobody's safe from suicidal thoughts, or nobody's safe from depression, or nobody's safe from anxiety, or any of those other mental or intellectual issues that come out of mental illness.
Yep.
So, and again, a lot of guys, they're taught from a young age, and I guess from probably about 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, from then onwards, they've been taught, oh, suck it up.
Yep.
You know, you be a man, you're a guy,
Yep.
you can't sit there, you can't cry, you can't do a lot of things. You've got to just push on and continue on.
Yeah.
You know, don't be weak type thing. So, again, a lot of guys have that mindset, and we've had that for, in my opinion, far too long.
Yeah.
So for people who are struggling with that side of things, it's find somebody you can talk to.
Mm.
You know, these things don't change themselves. They're not going to fix themselves unless you attempt to fix them.
Yes.
Now, a lot of the case, probably 99% of the cases, you're not going to be able to fix yourself, because if we could have fixed them ourselves, we wouldn't be going through this.
Yes.
Because the mindset that we've got, we don't talk to anyone anyway.
Yep.
So if we could fix it ourselves, there wouldn't be a problem. So I think that you've got to talk to someone. Find someone that you really trust and you can confide in. You can actually talk to someone and talk to them about anything that you're going through. That could be one person, that could be 5 people, that could be 20 people. You know, I've got about 10 people that I talk to about different things, and they all offer different perspectives on life and what I'm going through. So find a certain amount of people, whoever that is, and a certain person to talk to. Because the more you bottle these things up and don't let it out, the more likely you are to do something that someone will regret later down the line.
Yeah, that's right.
It could be yourself and it could be somebody else.
Yeah, well, look, I'll add at the end of this, the lifeline numbers and things like that, because sometimes people don't, they may be in a position where they don't have someone they can talk to, but there's always someone. There's always someone, and they just need to know the numbers to be able to call.
Exactly right.
Now, Troy, the other thing is COVID has greatly affected all our lives. How's it affected your life?
It's been a challenge, as it is for everyone. But again, what I was able to do early on, and it's quite luckily that I've got these connections, is actually set up my connections so that I still have the outlets that I need.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I've got a personal trainer that I see myself. He comes to me now. Yep. The gym's closed. All the gyms closed down. He runs his own business, so he's a small business like myself.
Yep.
And he comes to me. So again, it's a matter of using your resources to be able to live your life as normally as we can. Yeah. We've never been in this situation before, so it's an extreme change, and it's a massive change for all of us. But it's a matter of, the biggest thing is adapting and modifying what you need to modify, and change what you need to change. That way you can keep your life as normal as possible, which hopefully means your mental health stays pretty in check.
Exactly. Look, it's been great talking to you, Troy. I'm sure we're going to do this again, but I'm very grateful for your time today. And I'm confident that you are going to help a lot of people by talking as you have today. So thank you very much indeed for that.
No, thank you, David. Thanks for having me on here.